Could you guys let me know, hi Haider, whether you can hear me, whether you can see our screen, if everything works in the technical way as it should? Yeah, you can write in the chat whether you can see. I'd be very grateful if you could confirm. We'll also be starting in a minute or two, just to let everybody come in. So yeah, let's wait a moment. Yeah, nobody is writing anything, so I really hope you can see me and hear me.
I can confirm, Sylvia, at least from my side, that everything is working fine.
Great, thanks. Oh, hi, Rafał. I think could you, Rafał, confirm that you can hear us and see us from your perspective? Now I'm getting worried, but those comments which are come from LinkedIn and other streaming systems, they can come in later. So I think that's the issue. Hey guys. Oh, hello there.
Hello.
Yeah, I hope the weather is lovely for you today. Oh, Rafał, thank you for confirming. Great. Guys, I think I hope the weather is great where you are from, where you are now sitting. And here in Poland, where I am, I'm in the south of Poland. The weather is not so great, but we had a few days, which were really, really hot. So it is, a relief to have such a kind of chilly weather today. I see now the comments confirmations are coming. So really, the comments come a bit later. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for attending today. I think we can start now our webinar. Once again, thank you for participating. I'm Sylwia Kępa. I'm a product manager at X+. With me is Bartłomiej Lelek, our solution consultant. And together we'd like to talk to you about protecting sensitive data and also show you our solution regarding this issue. And while the topic, as you can see, of today's webinar is a business perspective on why and how to efficiently protect sensitive data in Microsoft Dynamics 365, finance and supply chain management. Of course, we also talk about solution regarding the earlier versions of Dynamics. I mean, let's say AX 2012, also 2009 as well. And I think, yeah, okay, so let me briefly show you the agenda for today. First of all, I will briefly talk to you about data protection in Microsoft Dynamics. Then we'll discuss some data leakage issues in organizations that occur. Then we talk about non-disclosure agreement and how to make them a non-issue. Then we'll move to a topic of protecting your sensitive data on all environments, both production, test, and all other environments you have. Then we'll show you our solution, and at the end there will be time for Q&A. So here's my request. If during this presentation at any time you have any questions, please write it down in the comment section, and we will answer those questions during the Q&A part of the session. Okay, so if that's okay with you, then I think I can move on with the presentation. Okay. So if we talk about data protection, actually we are talking about database protection, yes, because this is where the data is actually stored. And very often what may happen, the risk that we face is that the database may be compromised. And how it may be compromised? Usually by a stolen account. And it does not have to be an account of a user of production environment, but it can be administrator, somebody who as a tester and uses test environments, works on test environments, but still has access to production data or copy of production data. There is also security vulnerabilities. There are various of them, a variety of them. Also, there happen network penetrations, right? And actually, one of the greatest issues regarding database protection is that non-production copies of databases are better targets to cyber criminals than production databases. And that is why is it like this? Because we have this tendency that we believe that if something is on test environment or any non-production environment, development or any other, then we do not need to take care of it as much as we do for production database. And this is a wrong way of thinking, right? Because it leads to such behavior that we are not really monitoring those databases as closely, or often there is no security used the same as in production, right? So those databases are not as protected as actually they should be if they contain exactly the same data as on production. And yeah, so this of course may lead to data leakage. And what is a data leak? Is actually an overlooked exposure of sensitive data, which could occur physically, like, for example, somebody could steal your pen drive, which contains sensitive data, or you may leave your computer unlocked somewhere, or CDs, but they do not happen as so often, right? Those devices are now a thing of the past in most cases. And also it can happen electronically by file sharing or sending emails with attachments which are encrypted and which can be stolen. And the thing is, actually, I think the biggest problem is that those exposures oftentimes remain undiscovered even for years. And then it is the best case scenario is that the company notices that they have such exposure and they fix it. But the worst case scenario is that some cyber criminal or criminal organization may find it. And the consequences may be varied. Some ransomware and others that all of us wouldn't really wish to encounter. And but the seriousness of the issue I'm talking right now, it's best to highlight actually with real life numbers, with real life information, and this is what I would like to talk to you now about. So let's talk about business consequences of data leaks. And let's say the average total cost of data breach is $4.24 million. Of course, it varies, from country to country, from region to region. Somewhere it is bigger, somewhere it is lower, but on average, it is this amount. It's quite an amount. Let's say it's a cost that nobody would want to have, right? Next thing we have is that the average per capita cost of data breach increased from 2020 to 2021 by over 10%. Of course, it is related to the fact that we've moved, because of the pandemics, we moved to remote work, and not every company which was forced to move to remote work was prepared for that. So also some data breaches occurred because of that. And moving on, last year, lost business opportunities represented the large share of breach costs. So these lost opportunities, an average of total cost was $1.59 million. And yeah, because the time you could spend on expanding your business, on looking for new opportunities, you would spend actually on trying to contain the breach and its consequences. And yeah, some other consequences, of course, are declining revenue, tarnished reputation, which nowadays is very difficult to restore, massive financial penalties. For example, if you are in the European region, let's say about GDPR, right? GDPR, if you were, let's think about this example. A database storing information about your customers would be leaked, and how GDPR reacts then, they take each case individually. So for each person each customer of whom data would be leaked, the company would be fined separately. That's why the sum of fines would often amounts, and in this case would amount to millions, tens of millions, even hundreds of millions of euro. So it's also something that needs to be taken into account, and of course crippling lawsuits. So if we take a look of these possible consequences, data leaks, they can even drone a business. So I believe that this is a matter that should be taken seriously. And I think you agree with me on that. And to prove if the risk is real, let's say that some other facts, right? Some more numbers. So an average of 4,800 websites a month are hacked to collect sensitive user information. And this is really something those hackers do prefer because they, they have a lot to gain from. It is said that on average, each successful attack makes it possible for them to earn around $2 million. So this is worth the cake from their perspective. Another thing is, which you might find interesting, that the 34% of data breaches, at least in 2018, were caused or involved actually internal actors. And I'm not trying to tell you that those were only done by, malicious intent. Of course, there were such cases when somebody, on purpose prepared a copy of database and sold it or leaked it. So of course those risks are there, but also there were those unintentional data breaches, like sending an email to somebody who by mistake, somebody who shouldn't receive it. Yeah, and this email would contain some sensitive information or attachments, or password being leaked, or losing some devices containing sensitive data. All of these contain about 35% of all data breaches. And well, what is worrying actually is that it takes an average of 287 days to actually identify a data breach. So it's not something that suddenly happened and everybody is aware of that. It's something that you actually need to find if you look closely, or if you are a victim already or a criminal action and you find your data stored somewhere, or you are being contacted by some institution. And the average time to contain a breach that would occur, it's 80 days. So 80 days to contain it. Of course, depending on severity of this breach, it may take longer, or hopefully not as long. And the last thing, every 39 seconds a cyber attack occurs. So it's not something that may happen, or that the risk is low, that you may be lucky or fortunate enough to avoid it. There is a huge chance that you actually would be attacked sooner or later, and maybe even more than once. So this is something that we really need to protect ourselves against. We need to take this seriously, especially since those cyber criminals, they are not waiting. They are not just using the same methods. They are getting better and better at trying to create a data breach, to store the data. So we also need to look for new ways to protect ourselves even better. And now what I wanted to talk to you about is what I've mentioned before about this pandemic's causes of data breach. And remote work skyrocketed the risk, right? Because new sources, maybe not new, for some companies they may be new, but those sources of risks, they became greater. The chance of them occurring became greater. And let's say an example of the source of risk is that those workers who work from home or from some public places, they access the sensitive data through unsecure Wi-Fi networks, maybe public or private Wi-Fi networks, right? Not everybody implemented VPN and other security protocols on time, or even at all. Maybe they still don't have it. I hope that you do. I'm not going to ask you this, but just something you should think about. But moving on, another source of risk is using personal devices for work. And here's actually a worrying fact. A few days ago, I've come across statistics that it was done. The remote workers were asked whether they use their personal devices for work or the other way around, so their work devices for personal purposes, and 40% of them admitted that they do. So this also opens a window for data breaches, for some malware, for some bugs to appear, and viruses. So yes, this is the second one. And the third source of risk, which is also one of its main sources, is encrypted file sharing. So we are sending emails containing data or simply share files which are encrypted. So if they were taken a hold by somebody else, somebody who is not really, who shouldn't access this data, they would have no problem with seeing what is stored there because they are encrypted, right? So this is also something that should be considered. And yeah, so I've talked to you about the risks, the sources of this risk, when they occur, some business perspective, also some, yes, also some cases about some amounts that may appear there. But now let's talk a bit about how actually to prevent data leaks. And I'd like to focus on non-production databases because those, as I've said before at the beginning, those are actually better targets. So yeah, so the simplest solution there is, if your non-production database does not include sensitive information, well, then the sensitive data leak actually ceases to exist. Because even if the data were to be stolen, well, this data is not sensitive, it's worthless to these cyber criminals, right? Criminals. So this solution is, I think, simple and efficient. And we have a tool which is called database anonymization tool. And what it does, it creates a copy of a production database with encrypted sensitive data. And what's more, the data is encrypted in such a way that it does not, impact negatively the use of the non-production database. So it can still serve its intended purposes, but in a safer way, right? So you have any jobs running on the database, they still would work because the encryption would still contain the same logic as the original data did. Yeah, but the sensitive data would not be there. Of course, the tool, which I'm talking about, we will show it to you later, it is fully customizable. You can decide which information you want to encrypt and what hashing method to use. So, you have full control of what you consider as sensitive, aside from those, generally perceived data sensitive, like, personal information, right, of your customers, vendors, and such on, and such. And so you can also decide that, for example, information about payroll within your company, you've considered it sensitive and you do not want your testers and developers to access them, right, for some reason. Then you can create a copy of database with this data being encrypted. And I would like to, before we show you the tool, I'd like to talk to you about another problem, which is really not often spoken about non-disclosure agreement. Because with the start of pandemics and when we started hiring people from all over the world, with finding partners all over the world, we become more global, and it's amazing actually because when we have a global team, each of these team members brings something great to the team. They perspective, which may be very unique due to the region they are from, their own experiences. And in total, it amounts to to something. It gives great opportunities to the company to develop even better. But with those great opportunities comes also great risks, because if the company is situated in one country, they may be not really on the region. They may be not really aware of how law works in different regions of the world, and sometimes. Of course, we need to write those non-disclosure agreements with those workers we hire from other countries, just to be sure that the sensitive information of our company is secure. But it turns out that NDA might not be as binding as we think, for some reason. First of all, it may include information that may be simply not binding in a given country. They may be against law in a given country, or not worded as they should be, right? So to prepare an NDA which would be binding, we would need to have lawyers, consultants who would be fluent at the local law of the employer, right? So it is time consuming, it is expensive, and not really always foolproof, right? And well, let's say that we already have this NDA, a breach occurs, and if it does, it is extremely difficult to litigate NDAs because, well, if you talk about preventive action, well, it requires a clear proof, right, that a breach is about to occur. Such a proof is practically impossible to obtain. And if we talk about resistive action, it is not possible as, the resistive action is not possible as, once the sensitive confidential data is leaked, it cannot be retrieved, right? And also the action for damages is difficult as the link between the breach of the NDA and the damage are difficult to prove. And even if you are to prove it, well, if the data leaked would be very damaging to you, well, would the employee responsible for that be able to pay you enough? This is an open question, right? So let's think if there is a better way to address this problem. And so we think that we want to apply the same logic here as before. So how to make it actually a non-issue? Simple solution, do not share sensitive data if you do not have to. So if you, for example, hire a tester from another region, which you are unfamiliar with its law of this region, you may decide that you do not share the sensitive data with them, just provide a copy of database, as I've said before, with encrypted data, and the issue is solved, right? And with our database anonymization tool, you can decide which data you wish to share with your partners and employees. You decide what do you consider as sensitive. So in turn, the need to sign NDA may cease to be in total, or it may be noticeably limited, right? So we wouldn't need to worry as much. Okay, I think I've talked a lot about theory now. I think now we can show you actually the tool I have been talking about, this database anonymization tool. Bartek, could you please show us how we can make a copy of production database with this tool?
Yes, sure. Okay, so I hope you can see my screen. So this is how it looks, our database anonymization workspace, Dynamics 365. So before we will start, I'm just gonna briefly show you setup. So as Sylvia mentioned, we are able to adjust what kind of set will be used during anonymization process. So you as a user operator can decide whether you will just anonymize data based on some letter set or maybe some digits or maybe some combination of digits or letters. So it could be easily adjusted by the user. And once the hashing group's character set is done, we can just open data scanner parameters. So we're just gonna run our initial parameterization. So now the system will just gonna take a look at all of the tables and fields attached to those tables, which could be considered as a sensitive. And for the demo purpose, we're just gonna use our demo database. So we're not gonna encrypt data in our entire database, but in this case, we're just gonna leave a few fields from each GDPR test table, just to show you as an example. So let me just remove it. But of course, as you like, you can easily add some new tables by clicking this add button. And once we just decided what kind of fields will be encrypted, we need to just run scanner. So now the system will just gonna search for specific data. And before we'll just run this anonymization, let me just open the sensitive data. I'm just gonna duplicate this card just in order to show you what's the difference between our test data. So before we'll start anonymization process, let me just generate some random records. Maybe let's take 2000 records. And now the system will just generate information based on our criteria. So we'll get some values here. As you can see, we've got 2000 records here. So we've got different columns like name, city, street, telephone, email, tax exempt number, etc. And now all we have to do is just actually to run this anonymization button. So let me just confirm it. And once we'll just confirm it, now the engine will just hash those data. Okay, this one is done. So now we can just open this test data. And let me just gonna show you the original values before encryption process. So as you can see, for instance, we've got column name, and here we've got anonymized data, and below we've got the original values. We are also anonymizing, for instance, street as a column, so you can see randomly created letters, and the same goes, for instance, for email address. So this is how it looks, database anonymization. Yes. So, all right, over to you, Sylvia.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. Guys, I hope that you've liked it. Somebody wrote, and Fred, you wrote that you couldn't really hear Bartek very well. I hope that this was not an issue for all of you, because we are not in the same location, but I was able to hear him well with no problem. So, but if more of you guys had such problem, please let us know. And but now moving back to this tool, before we move on with this with the presentation, I'd like to add one more thing. In this case, when we are talking about creating a copy of production database with anonymized values, there is an option to secure your production database so that you do not, run over and actually anonymize your production environment. Right, it's very important that this data is protected there. So there's also this option. It actually enforced option so that you are not really able to do it. To anonymize this data. We'll also move back, show you something else a little bit later. So please stay with us. Let's continue. But I also wanted to now talk to you about our free trial. If you are interested in this solution, if you like to try on your own whether how it would work for you, you can sign up for the trial. You can see the link in the presentation, but it is also now in the chat. So you can sign up for it. It is totally free. Also, if you want to be interested in some audit to know how do you address some sensitive data, whether they are protected as they should be, which data should be actually anonymized, we can also work with that with you. So if you're interested, you can sign up. And okay, moving on. What I also like to talk to you about is protecting sensitive data on all environments, but not really talking about VPNs, about this kind of protection, but about data anonymization. And in some cases, data anonymization is required by law. Yeah, the best case which comes to my mind is, as I mentioned before, GDPR, right? This is this right to be forgotten when somebody contacts you, a client, and asks to be forgotten. So this is the one scenario, or they maybe after a few years be told to erase certain sensitive data, or at least anonymize it or pseudonymize it. So those are things required by law. But if we talk about production environments, such actions require surgical-like precision to anonymize only the selected data without the disruption of the integrity of the production database. So of course, the simple solution is delete the data. But what about the reporting you have? If you suddenly delete data related to your customers, there is a huge chance that your reporting, looking back at at the past years back or months back, it can be disrupted, right? May no longer show the truth. Also, deleting some information more than you have to. It's also not really a good approach. So instead of deleting it, it's better to anonymize it, but also anonymize it in such a way that it still is all these automates working on this data or those jobs are still able to perform as they should, right? So if there is, for example, something that triggers sending an email address, if you suddenly were to have a field anonymized, which only would store some digits and letters, some letters and numbers, well, the job would most likely show an error that no such email address exists. But thanks to the tool we have, which allows you to decide how to hash separate fields, those those checks whether the data is in a correct format, they would still work okay. So this is also a great advantage here. Also, the logs of that you've actually completed such an action, right? So if in chance you have a control from data protection inspector, you can show that you have implemented a solution that works, and there are also logs of how you've handled different requests. And we have actually, aside from this tool, which Bartek showed you a moment ago, with the tool for database anonymization, which was dedicated to databases which were, non-productional databases, non-productional environments, actually. There's a second tool which is very similar. It's called personal data anonymization, but this one was created for the purpose of safely hashing selected data on production environments. So this is, very precise tool. It is prepared in such a way that minimizes the risk or or some errors of anonymizing more than needed. And I think we can take a look at how it may address that this tool may address such a scenario that a customer contacts you and asks to be erased from your database, asks to be forgotten. They say they want you to be complying with the GDPR law. So, Bartek, could you please show us how this solution works?
Right. Okay. So here is our personal data anonymization. So this is actually for a production environment, and it's a little bit different way how we are just anonymizing data, because first of all we need to create our search configuration, and here is a list of already created configurations. Those default configurations are also available in our free trial version if you need it. And here I would like to show you some example how we're just gonna anonymize data on the customer card. So the fields such as customer name, tax exempt number, fax, phone, and email address will be anonymized. And first of all, we need to create some inquiry. So based on CAS table and all of those tables which are related to CAS table. And once configuration is created, we can actually register our anonymization request. So we are just coming back to our landing page, and all you have to do is just to create anonymization request from here. And then we need to search from a drop-down list our default configuration. That's the one. And now we as you can see, we have more extended fields. And based on those fields, we can actually search for our customer. So let me just open customer's grid. Here is the list of the accounts in our ERP system. And as an example, let's maybe take this one. As you can see, we've got one telephone number attached to this customer. So we'll just try to search for this customer based on the telephone number. Let me just type it, and then we'll just save and open this request. And now we can just start to run search engine. So now the system will should search for specific record. In this case, we have only one customer, so we should receive only one record. So we are able to open search results. And now, as you can see, we've got one customer. Let me just expand entire list. And here is the list of the details which will be actually anonymized based on our criteria. So if we just scroll down a bit, we'll be able to see the original value for fax. That's the number. And here's an information that anonymization action is set as anonymization. So once we'll confirm such a request, the original values will be replaced by some randomly created digits. So all you have to do right now is just to approve such a request, and now we'll be able to generate anonymization values. So that's our answer to right to be forgotten. Okay, so I think that's it from this part. So you can continue, Sylvia.
Okay, thank you very much, Bartek, for sharing how it works. Yes, so this is how it addresses, and you've probably seen that Bart had to approve before doing the anonymization. Yeah, this is a part of the the security measures implemented in the tool, so that you actually are making a conscious decision, and may decide on different roles: somebody who submits the request and somebody who approves and implements them, right? So just you are sure that you are consciously anonymizing data, because anonymization, when we talk about anonymization, it is permanent and generally irreversible. Of course, there are some ways to reverse data when we, for example, talk about pseudonymization, but the feature, which is also included in the tool, right? But the feature related to anonymization of data is on the production is irreversible. So that's why it includes some additional security measures. Okay, guys. So I think now we can move to the last part of our session, to the Q&A part. And okay, I already see some questions displayed. Yes. So the trial. How long is the trial? It is for 2 weeks. But we are of course flexible. So if you need to check something else, something more makes more checks, we can extend it a bit. But generally for 2 weeks. Also, what we offer is working together. So you first of all you learn how to use this tool, then you apply it to your your own environment, and then we also check whether how it goes, if all is clear, if it's understandable, and then you can make a decision whether it's something you wish to pursue. So yeah, if the link is still in the chat, if you wish to sign up for the trial, please do. It is free, of course. Okay, have we got another question? Anonymization be reversed? Yeah. So as I've said, it depends actually. Well, if we talk about this second tool, which we've shown you for production, it depends on what kind of anonymization you use. If you use pseudonymization, it means that the actual original values are stored in a separate location, to which some users who have permissions, or certain role, they can access it. And but other users in the system view these values as hashed, as anonymized, encrypted. And yeah, so this is the part when it can be reversed. Also, to some extent, you can reverse the first tool, but still it all depends on kind of database and how kind of data you are anonymizing. So actually, it'd be best to assume that anonymization is irreversible, right? We actually do not want the users who get the people who view the data anonymized, for them to find a different solution and find a way to bring the original values, right? So that's why it has to be, in most cases, irreversible. I hope it answers your question. If not, please let me know.
Maybe I can answer on this one. So how does it work with AX roles? So when it comes to AX roles, our product is also coming with the roles. So by default, it's possible to adjust and assign a specific role for your users. But besides of that, also our solution supports XDS, so extensible data security. So it means that it's even it grants even more opportunities to restrict or grant specific access to specific part of the solution. So it means that some specific user or group of the users will be able, for instance, to see or edit some part of the search configuration. So it gives you even more opportunities to be in compliance with segregation of duties.
Yeah, that's right. Are there any more questions? They may come late a bit, because as we've had at the beginning, the issues of the comments were coming late, but I don't see any more questions now. Okay, so guys, if any questions come later, or if you have anything come, to your mind that you would like to ask something, you please feel free to contact us. We'll be happy to talk to you, to answer those questions. I'd also like you to know, to sign up for the trial if you're interested. As I said, the link is in the chat. And so I think, well, we can close right now this session as no more questions are there. Thank you very much for participating. I hope you found this webinar interesting. Thank you once again for your time. I hope to see you again. Oh, I see that once the question is how long is the trial? It is 2 weeks. 2 weeks long. Okay. So guys, once again, thank you very much. Have a lovely day.
And thank you for listening us. Thank you for attending the meeting.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.